Hi, I'm Renee Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Hello, and welcome to the Spiritually Wired podcast. Today, we're going to explore a topic that I have been personally experimenting with and refining over the years, and that is finding flow in staying productive. Because I do believe that productivity isn't just about ticking things off a to-do list. It really is about getting things done with ease, with clarity, with joy, and doing that without burning out. To me, it's about taking inspired action so that you're focusing on what truly matters to you and you're moving the needle forward in the areas of life that are calling your energy. So I'm going to share a personal approach that has worked for me, and that includes 6 key strategies that I use to stay in flow. And so I hope that you find some inspiration here to create your own rhythm and flow and redefine what productivity means for you, because it truly is a personal matter. The first strategy is weekly planning, which really speaks to the power of being prepared. Personally, I use Sundays as my anchor day, and that is when I take time every Sunday to pause, reflect on the past week, and plan ahead for the coming week. I've come to see planning really as a form of self-care, and I would even say self-love. It's about creating more mental clarity and intentionally setting the tone for the week ahead. Now, I work with different journals, and probably that can be a whole episode, but I do have a specific weekly planner that I've been using these past few years. It's by a Canadian company, Hemlock and Oak. I'm going to share the link with you in the show notes. So what I do on Sundays is I begin by taking out my calendar on my phone, which is where I have all of my physical appointments. So I pull out my phone all of the times. I look at all of the times during the week where I need to be present in person or on a call. So for me, it's going to look like my coaching calls that I have with clients that are scheduled, the classes that I teach in the Spiritually Wired membership, the mastermind sessions that I'm facilitating, and then also all of the personal appointments that I have booked. So I take a look at my calendar, and then with my planner, which I am a big fan of, just again using a paper planner, because I like to map out all of the meetings and the appointments that I have in my planner. There's something about seeing everything visually laid out for the week that gives me just more of a sense of structure, and it helps me feel more grounded and ready for the week ahead. Now, I've tried doing the daily planner approach, but for me personally, it just doesn't work well. And that's where you need to fine tune this for, what's best for you. I personally prefer working in 7-day blocks. Now, after that, I review my goals. So take a moment just to quickly check in my monthly, quarterly, and even sometimes the yearly goals so that I know what needs attention. And in that way, I can continue to stay on track with my bigger vision goals. And it helps me to focus on the high priority tasks instead of just getting caught up in the busy work. Because if we don't schedule those things, those bigger goals that we have, they typically do not happen. So that's one thing that I do. I kind of take a glance at all of my goals and make sure that if there are certain big ones, I'm creating space to work on them. And I'll also make a list of just the action items that need to get done. And those can be more kind of smaller personal items that I know need to get done, like I need to book an appointment or whatever it may be. I like to set an intention for the week, and this is where an intention is really about what is the energy that you want to embody that week? What is the focus for you that week? So, for instance, one week, your focus can be on just rest and recover and being intentional with resting that week can help you in terms of letting go of the other stuff that doesn't support that intention. One week, your focus can be on a specific project that you're working on, and you know that most of your attention, most of your energy needs to go towards the completion of a certain project. So when you're more intentional with where you want to bring your energy, then it helps you to remember what's important so that you can, again, let go of everything else. And that means letting go of the guilt around the things that you feel you should be doing, which is a big thing. You know, I was just in London, England with our son. We were helping him move there. And so being intentional with the fact that my focus that week was really to be there for him, it kind of helped me to be able to let go of all of the other things that I may have felt like I should have tried to fit in the week. So I did have some work things that I knew needed to be done, but I was very intentional with what those would be, and I could let go of the rest and really just embrace the time that I had with him there. Now, speaking of intentions, one thing that I also try is to link action items with an intention. And the purpose is to be connected with why you're doing something so that you're not just adding things to your list of to-do items. So whenever you're listing something that you want to do, or you're scheduling a meeting or booking a call, it's so good to be connected with why you're doing it in the first place so that it just shifts the energy around it. And the other thing that I found to be really helpful when it comes to planning my week is to focus on the space in my calendar. And that is really key, because sometimes, let's say you have a week where there's a lot on your plate, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. But if you focus on the space, then it helps you to realize that there actually is time. And maybe it's going to be early in the mornings, maybe it's going to be in the evening, maybe it's in between sessions or appointments or calls or whatever it may be that you have on the go that week. But it helps you to remember that there is space so that you can be more purposeful in those moments. And I know that personally, it just helps me make the most of my time during those spaces so that you can really use them to reset, to ground yourself, to do what it is that you need in order to practice self-care, self-love. And I also find that it's a great guide, because if you don't see any spaces in your calendar, then that's usually a sign that you need to start saying no maybe to some things so that you can create space. So really lay out your weekly plan, but then focus on the space that you have during the week. I make sure to add my morning and evening rituals in the calendar too, and any other important things like working out, or even, time to go for walks, like all of your self-care included in your calendar, because, we need to schedule these things in order for them to happen. And now, just to be clear, it's not about making this rigid plan, this rigid schedule, because life is always going to be throwing us some curveballs. But what I found is that the more clear the more clear our structure is, it actually allows for more flexibility without losing ourselves or without losing direction. So the gift of planning is that it helps you to start your week with a more calm, a more focused mind, rather than scrambling to figure things out as you're going about your week. Now, the second strategy is the Pomodoro Technique, which is really one that helps you to beat procrastination in chunks of time. Now, we all have those tasks that we avoid, whether it's writing emails or doing some admin work, doing your finances, cleaning maybe, or starting this project that you really want to do. It's been on your mind for a long time, but it's so easy to avoid. And this is where I found the Pomodoro Technique to be helpful, because here's how it works. First, you want to identify what task that you want to be working on. And then what you do is you set a timer for, let's say, 25 minutes. And the idea is that during those 25 minutes, you're going to focus solely on that one task. And then you can reward yourself with a 5-minute break. Now, you can change the timing so that it works for you. You could do like 50-minute work with a 10-minute rest, or you could do a 20-minute work session with 10-minute rest. But most of us can do anything for 25 minutes. And usually what I found is that once I start, I actually keep going longer. So for instance, if I'm working on content creation, and it can be something like planning this podcast, right? Starting can often be the hardest part because we just feel a bit overwhelmed. We're not sure where to start. But when I use a timer, once the timer goes off, I usually can kind of slip into a zone. And once I'm in that zone, I tend to want to continue. So it's amazing how breaking tasks into smaller chunks make them feel way less overwhelming. And this is where, once you've started, you can even extend the time if you feel like you're really on a roll. Because here's the thing, the key to really beating procrastination is to just get started. And the Pomodoro Technique reminds me of, it's sort of like how an airplane uses the most energy during takeoff, but it coasts once it reaches a cruising altitude. So it's sort of similar to how starting a task can feel tough. It can feel really hard to start. But once you push through that initial resistance, momentum starts to kick in and everything flows more smoothly. So all it takes is to get through that initial resistance, and then you can find that using a timer can really help you to do that. So that was the Pomodoro Technique. The third strategy is to limit decisions so that you can prevent decision fatigue. Now, I don't know about you, but I can really find myself feeling mentally exhausted after a day of making countless small decisions. And honestly, we are bombarded with so much information these days, information that's coming our way, and most of the time we're expected to reply or to make decisions about them. And that's where decision fatigue can begin to set in a really big way. And this decision fatigue is a real thing. It can be like anywhere from deciding what you're going to wear to figuring out what you're going to eat to what you're going to post, right? If you have a business and you're on social media, boy, that takes up a lot of energy too. So all of these small choices can add up and they can really begin to drain your energy. So if you want to conserve your mental bandwidth, it's really helpful to be mindful of limiting unnecessary decisions. So for example, you can plan your outfits the night before, you can batch cook your meals for the week. And I found that it's also a practice that has inspired me to embrace a more minimalist lifestyle. That's something that I'm working towards. I do feel that the fewer options I have, the lighter and clearer my mind feels. It's like when you go to a store and there's so many options, it can feel incredibly overwhelming. Where I personally prefer to go to a smaller boutique store where there's fewer options, and I tend to just spot and choose what it is that I like from a more limited option. So when your mind is clear, it really helps to slip into the flow, and the fewer options you have, the fewer decisions you have to make, the less mental energy it takes. The fourth strategy is to limit context switching in the workplace. Now, context switching is the act of jumping between tasks or types of work. And it really, truly is one of the biggest killers of productivity. Research shows that every time we shift focus, we actually lose energy, we lose time, and we lose mental clarity. And it takes the brain several minutes to reorient itself, which means that constantly switching context drains more than just time. It actually is eroding our focus and our flow. And now, not to generalize here, but I can say this as a woman that we often pride ourselves as women on being great multitaskers. Yet, if we're really being honest, juggling too much doesn't mean that we're more productive. It means that we've stretched ourselves too thin. So I've noticed this pattern in myself lately, and I find especially as a business owner, 1 minute I'm writing content, and then the next I'm answering a text thinking, okay, it's just going to take a second to reply to this person. But the truth is that the text, even if it only took me a minute to write and to reply, has now pulled me out of the zone. And now it's going to take me more effort to get back into the flow again. So the key to limiting context switching is really to create an environment that supports deep work or deep focus. So you want to turn off your notifications. You want to close all of the unnecessary browser windows that you have open. Keep only the task at hand in front of you, and using a timer like the Pomodoro Technique that we just mentioned earlier can also be really helpful. So you want to give yourself dedicated blocks of time to focus, knowing that you're going to have some space to handle the other tasks later. And this approach not only preserves your mental energy, but it also invites flow, where productivity becomes more effortless. The fifth strategy is to ritualize tasks so that you can create momentum through meaning. Now, one of the biggest shifts that I've experienced in my life has been learning to ritualize my tasks. Rituals anchor us in the present moment, and they turn activities into more meaningful experiences. So, personally, my day begins with meditation and writing, and it's not just a routine. It really is a sacred practice that grounds me, that aligns my mind, my heart, and it helps me start the day with intention. And right after that, I block off an hour of creative work, which is whether, I'm doing some writing or brainstorming, creating content, working on some bigger projects that require more of my focus and energy. That is the time for deep work. And you can actually listen to my entire morning ritual in episode 2 of this podcast, because I share everything that I do in my morning routine. Now, I've truly found that ritualizing creative time means that it's time now that is protected. It's not squeezed in between other tasks or treated as an afterthought. I light a candle, I'll play some soft music, I let myself be fully immersed in the process. And I believe that these little details are what signal to my soul that, okay, this is a special time, that this is a sacred time that I want to honor. But beyond that, it actually is signaling to the universe that I'm here and I'm open to receive, and that I'm answering the call to my soul's purpose. So it's more than what we do, it really truly is about who you are being. And it shifts the energy and it aligns you to this higher power. So this leads me to the sixth strategy, which is to focus on flow. That is the sweet spot where productivity meets presence. The ultimate goal is to shift from doing to being. And this is where flow comes in. Flow is that sweet spot where you lose track of time, everything feels aligned, and work feels less like effort and more like ease. And I've noticed that I can enter flow more easily when I am deeply present. It's not about forcing things or grinding through a to-do list. It really is about creating the right environment for flow to happen naturally. And this could mean that you're setting boundaries around your creative time. It can mean silencing distractions or doing things that bring you joy, like a nature walk in between meetings. You know, Gay Hendricks in the book, The Big Leap, he refers to a similar concept called Einstein time. And that is essentially a mindset where you stop racing against the clock and you realize that you actually have all the time that you need when you're fully in the moment. When we operate from flow, things get done not by pushing harder, but by allowing space for inspiration to emerge. And I really encourage you to give that a try, because anytime, like sometimes I'll find myself feeling overwhelmed about I have this big project and I think, oh, it's going to take so much time. Yet if, let's say, I have half an hour that's open, it's amazing how if I put everything aside and I really truly allow myself to get into the flow of doing what I need to do from that aligned place, it always gets done in that time. I never need more time to do it. So really have fun with that and experiment with it, because flow isn't just about being productive. It really is about being present, about being aligned and connected to what you're doing. When we work from a place of flow, the work truly becomes more joyful. You're taking inspired action, and there's intention, there's meaning, and a greater energy behind it. It helps to always be in communication with this greater energy, with this higher power, so that you can really allow for life to unfold with ease, where you can be in a place where you trust that things are unfolding for your highest and best, and you're going for the flow of you're going with the flow of life as opposed to resisting the flow of life. So this is your invitation to just shift your focus from simply getting things done to creating a rhythm that nurtures your flow. And when we do from a place of being, productivity becomes effortless. It's no longer about squeezing tasks into your day, but it's more about aligning with what feels meaningful and what feels inspired. So if you found this episode to be helpful, I would love to hear how you apply these ideas to your life. Feel free to share your thoughts. Tag me on Instagram with your favorite ways to be in the flow, to be productive. Productivity isn't just about doing more. It really is about doing from a place of being. So until next time, stay present, stay aligned, and remember that you are spiritually wired for ease and flow. Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly live lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at reneewalkerwellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.